Every episode of The Angry Chicken is made possible by our amazing patrons over at patreon.com/tack. For more of Jocelyn's content, check out jossplays.com. And if you can't get enough of Ridiculous Hat, follow him over on Twitter at RidiculousHat. The Angry Chicken is a production of A Move TV.
Time's up. Let's do this.
Legendary! You face Jaraxxus! You smell like a leper gnome! I knew it! So a podcast about Hearthstone and Battlegrounds. This is The Angry Chicken!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Angry Chicken. I'm your host, Jocelyn, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Ridiculous Hat. Welcome, Hat. Are you excited to talk about the D-Knights?
Yes, always.
Good.
we actually get to talk about like cards because they put out so many of them, and then they put out a bunch more. And last week we didn't have time to talk about any, so this week we're going to talk about a lot of them. Not every card, not all of them.
Which is really good because just in Death Knight cards, there are 54. 54. So not all of them, but some.
Yeah, that's also 25% of the total cards in this reveal season, which will all be done in the next 17 days. So we're going to have some content.
Oh, God, it's going to be really difficult. And I'm glad we're going to talk about this in a second, about the choices they've made around the reveal season this time. But I'm glad we're getting packages. I feel like that's going to make it a lot easier to parse, especially when we're talking about, 200 plus cards.
Joss loves packages.
I do.
Heard it here first.
I do. Well,
Yes.
Before we get into the news, let's take a moment to thank our wonderful patrons over at patreon.com/tack. We are supported by those epic patrons. If you become a Tack patron, you do get access to our amazing Discord server, as well as you have one more week of exclusivity on that super secret, totally not secret thing that Hat and I recorded. If you like, then maybe you should go and check out patreon.com/tack. Just like Chris M, Elliot G, Andrew D, and Jim W did. Thank you guys so much for the support. Again, head on over to patreon.com/tack. And now let's get into the Hearthstone news.
Good news, everyone!
We have some news about addressing accessibility in Hearthstone. So Guide Dev has been making a mod for visually impaired Hearthstone players for about a year and a half. It's called Hearthstone Access, and it's been really amazing. Community loves it. But he's unable to keep up with the project, as sometimes happens with add-on creators. So 24.6 is going to be the last patch that is going to be supported. So Blizzard came out with a statement to talk about basically recognizing the efforts of this amazing dev to kind of help fill some of those accessibility gaps in Blizzard's software. And they've been doing some things to actually provide support to Hearthstone Access. And there are some changes coming in 25.0. So that is the next expansion patch that are going to basically give us expanded audio control. So the idea behind this was that there were a lot of things. You basically had your music slider and your main audio slider, which didn't really give a lot of room for getting out of the way of some of the like screen reader software. So now you're going to be able to do all kinds of things. They're putting in all the sliders. So you're going to be able to control that tavern murmur and dialogue volume levels. What else? There's, well, obviously music. Music is already in there. And then I thought there was something else as well. Oh, you can change it to mono.
Yes. So you can make it the same thing in both ears in case you don't want to like get distracted by something over here. It's meant for, like, they could justify the inclusion of this by saying we get out of the way of your screen narration software, but also it's just for a lot of people, this will be a useful thing to be able to control.
Oh, I love this. I love this because I mean, I'm one of those people that like, I like the dialogue, but I hate some of the other stuff. Like, and the sound mix is not necessarily the way I would do it if I was in charge. Some things sound really, really, really loud to me. And so the idea that I can turn those things down and like just listen to the super cool voice work and things like that, that's what I want to hear. And I don't necessarily mind the tavern murmur, but yeah, I love that we're getting more flexibility with our sounds, and I don't even need to use it for any sort of accessibility reason. It's totally quality of life for me. But I know it's really, really important to people who use screen reading software. So I think this is a win. This is really good. But they're basically talking about how they understand that with the changes, that means some people may not be able to play 25.0 right away, but they are committed to kind of working on what Hearthstone Access was providing to the community and making an in-game solution for that. So they say it's going to take some time, but they're aware of it and they're prioritizing it, which I think is a good thing. But I had a chat with Hat before the show because I'm like, am I being a jerk about this? But like, why has it taken so long is the first thing that pops into my head usually with stuff like this about Hearthstone. Is like, it has been out for 9 years now. Like, why don't we have accessibility features? So, but I think it's good that they're like committed to implementing these changes now.
So the result that we're looking at here is going to be almost an unmitigated positive of having accessibility features natively baked into the game, into the client, which also means this will translate to mobile, which is a big, big deal. That you can have these accessibility features baked in. The questions that arise are about why wasn't this in the game before, and accessibility has been something that's really come a long way in the past 10 years. A lot of companies were not always great about it. Some are still not great about it, but a lot of games are making huge, huge strides here. You and I were talking as well. I just started God of War Ragnarok yesterday, and amazing game. And when you start it, there are like 3 pages of options, including a bunch of accessibility options. Auto pickup, traversal assist, colorblind filters, high contrast mode, reduce screen shake, all sorts of things about letting people play the game. It is not just the right thing to do. It is a good business decision because if your audience is larger, then they pay you more. And Guy Dev mentioned that, sorry for all the people that pre-ordered 25.0 because I won't be able to help like get this into the game for Death Knights. So that is an economic impact there. But I don't think that accessibility is making this pivot because of economics. It's probably going to cost them more than it'll make them to do this, but it's still the right thing to do. And accessibility gets to work in a less cynical space than we're used to seeing, where they get to do things that are just the right thing to do. And I will say, Guy Dev said on November 4th, I don't have the resources to put towards this anymore, I'm sorry. On November 8th, we got the statement. Did not take them a tremendous amount of time. They very clearly had a conversation about it right away. They were working on supporting what was being done by a community member by also bringing in other people because Guy Dev was doing that. So duplicating the effort wouldn't reach more people quickly. And now they're saying, well, we have to do it and we want to do it, so we're going to do it. Would have liked to not have some downtime, but I'm glad they responded so quickly and so positively. I was really happy to see the community reaction where everyone signal boosted, this is leaving, let's get some help and make sure that Blizzard knows this is on our radar. There's a cynicism about capitalism is underneath every single thing we talk about on the show, and for good reason. But at least this is a bunch of people inside that say, we care, let's do this, and then they're going to do it. So I'll take that. I'll take it.
Yep, that's totally fair. Also, as I alluded to earlier, there are some card reveal changes with the way that they're doing this expansion, which I am a fan of as a content creator. I really like the idea of packages and like groups of cards that synergize together that we get a chance to kind of see, because you can go back to episode like 2 of Angry Chicken, or the first time that we did any sort of like card grading, because we used to give cards grades. I know, wild.
That was the style at the time.
It was. Oh my god.
There used to be this thing. Listeners, if you didn't start until like listening to us until about Ashes of Outlandish, around the Demon Hunter launch, around then. Before that, every podcast for about a month would add an hour to every episode, go card by card, and grade them all on every single Hearthstone podcast. And there were a lot of Hearthstone podcasts back then. And it was all the same content in different places. And then there was this trend around Ashes where everyone just said, screw that, no way.
Well,
We're just not going to do it.
That's when, so originally I feel like we would get like 10 to 15 cards a week, and the reveal seasons were so long. And then all of a sudden the reveal season was shrunk down into like 2 weeks. And it was like, we cannot do shows where we talk about every single card and we talk about 130 something cards in 2 weeks. Like we can't, like no one wants to listen to that. So it really made us reevaluate our strategy around that. I mean, God, and we had tried everything. I remember we did like grades, like ABCDs, we did star ratings, we did craft, don't craft, like we did all kinds of different iterations of like how to evaluate cards. And in the end, just like talking about them is better. Like, because like we would go through, even like we had 3 hosts at the time, and each of us would give a letter grade. So we had 3 letter grades for every freaking card. Like, just, oh man, why? It wasn't even a tax grade.
This sounds more stressful, more stressful than playing Overcooked.
So
it's terrible.
Stressful. So yeah, we every single kind of card evaluation show that we did, we would have this giant like asterisk like caveat on the show that was like, we don't have all the cards yet. And every single card that we would talk about, we'd be like, well, this card will be good if it gets Murloc support, or if there's no silence in the meta, or like, you know. And it was so much of trying to evaluate these things in these teeny tiny little vacuums, because we would only have, 20 cards from the set. And we're like, well, we've seen this one hunter card, so maybe Beast Hunter will be a thing, but we don't know. And so this kind of takes the we don't know away from like content creation. So selfishly, I really like this, because we can look at something and say, hey, this is what Beast Druid is getting. And that's so cool.
Yeah, it's evaluations done in a vacuum. There's one thing I know about vacuums: they suck. So I'm glad we don't have to deal with that anymore.
I will give you that one. I will give you that one. And I think this really came about actually because of last expansion's release of relic vaults when we didn't know what
that was the nail in the coffin.
Yeah, that was the thing that really did it.
It launched one of the funniest weeks I've seen on Reddit, where people would just make up new keywords that relics granted to all their minions. I enjoyed that, but yeah, it makes more sense. There was a small prototype of this in the mini set recently, where instead of doing by rarity, which they did for a while in the mini sets, the social reveals where they do all the commons, all the rares, then the one epic, and then the legendaries, they did it by class, and they told you which class was which day. They told you the order. And on the reveal site, it had the icons. And I think it worked really, really well. We talked about it. It just, you knew what you were getting. People that main classes knew when to be excited. And then also, when they were done with that reveal, you would go start building decks because you had all the rogue cards. You had all the warrior cards. You didn't have to wait for context because context is such a big deal. So what they're doing this time, they're doing this on steroids. Every single Death Knight card will be revealed by tomorrow, November 10th. All of them. And they were revealed so far in groups. So today, the 9th, we got every Unholy Rune card. Yesterday, we got every Frost card. Day before that, we got all Runeless cards, base cards. Tomorrow is all the Blood cards. That's it. We're done with Death Knight. All the neutrals are going to be out by the 12th over the weekend. And then class reveals start next week. Keen-eyed observers might note, well, there's a Death Knight show match on the 16th and 17th, so all the cards they can play in the Death Knight show match, we'll have them all by the end of the weekend. And by the way, that Death Knight show match, you're going to want to check that out. It's over on Twitch. It's over on YouTube. It's on the morning of the 16th, the morning of the 17th, 9 a.m. Pacific. There's different teams for each rune. So there's a Blood team and a Frost team and an Unholy team. It's a show match. It's going to be on both. And it's hosted by Slissa and Garrett. We know them. You know them. So make time for that. And then when you go and look at how they're going to reveal all the different class cards, it's the icons again, but we're getting packaged reveals. So imagine if instead of getting Relic Vault and see in 2 weeks, it is It is Relic Vault, Zymox, and all 3 relics revealed by one person at one time. You get them all, no standalones.
Which is also really cool because that was something that you would see even in reveal videos when they had like one card. It felt like they were really like confined and kind of careful about what they said about their reveal card, because they were like, you know, either I don't know what else is in the set that's going to support this, or I'm not allowed to talk about whatever else is in the set that is going to support this. And so you had to make, again, those even reveal videos very kind of pared back, and you couldn't really talk about the hype. Whereas if you're going to talk about an entire synergistic package, that's a much more exciting piece of content. So I think it's really good for the content creators that get these reveals as well, because they're able to speak to how it's going to fit into the meta. They're able to speak to really cool combos that they see coming out of these synergy packages. So, I mean, I think it makes for better content on the reveal side of things as well for those creators. So I'm really, really, really happy about this.
Yep. And it makes it easier. Like, just the show today, we're just going to talk about Death Knight because we don't have any of the other class cards done. We have all of the DK cards except for some of the blood cards. We're going to miss some of the blood cards, so we'll be shorter on that because of just how the show timing works. I can't do a podcast tomorrow. Black Panther's coming out. My weekend is ruined. But we will have every DK card by the end of tomorrow. We will have every card in the set revealed by Sunday, November 26th. That is the end of Thanksgiving weekend. Whoever is working over Thanksgiving weekend in the card library, we appreciate you. American Thanksgiving. Sorry.
Yeah,
Josh.
I was like, what? That already happened. What are you talking about?
You had yours.
I did have mine.
We're in the in between Thanksgiving period where you have had yours and I have not had mine. There is a month of Thanksgiving limbo, but we're almost done. And then we'll have a week and a half where we know all the cards before the patch is in the game and the expansion is live. So I'm guessing the holidays are relating to that strange little gap there. But honestly, with DK, I don't mind having the gap, at least not right now. I'm sure some people will be uppity during that brief period. Don't worry, it's 10 days. You'll be fine.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, it's fine. I think there's going to be a lot of theory crafting that needs to happen. Like, we, again, have a pretty good idea of what Death Knight looks like. We're going to know completely tomorrow. But Death Knight is just one piece of this expansion, right? Like, we're up to 11 classes now. So that's a lot. That's a lot of moving parts. So I think that, having that much time between getting the cards and getting the expansions, probably okay. I want to think it over. I want to figure out what I want to do on day one. And I know everyone's going to be Death Knighting, obviously, but I think there's probably going to be a lot of cool stuff in there that isn't just Death Knight stuff. So yeah, trying to figure out what that is while also being very distracted by the ooh shiny. It's going to be tough, and I welcome the extra time.
It's they very clearly, the Hearthstone team thinks that this expansion is a huge deal, and justifiably so. But like, I don't know if you've seen floating around, there are a lot of people posting pictures or emails of getting gifted packs if they haven't played in a while, based on how long they've been away from the game. Like, some people, if they've only played BGs for a while, then some of them get gifted 150 packs.
What?
75. Well, so because here's the logic that I can find. You're not losing money as Blizzard if you're giving away packs they were never going to buy anyway. If you give someone that hasn't played Standard since Barons, they have 0 cards in Standard, and you give them 75 Standard packs and 75 Nathria packs or something, then they're going to think about buying the Lich King pre-order. If you didn't send them the packs, they never think once about sending you money. And so it's not like, current players are owed something, whereas people that aren't playing aren't. It's that the goal of Blizzard is to get them back in the game without making them spend hundreds of dollars to do it when they weren't even thinking about it. So there's no cost if the thing they were giving away wouldn't have been bought.
Yeah, I mean, I completely understand your logic. It's just like, I'm a little bit with Dazzledorn in the chat room. Like, I get why they do it, but it feels very much like, I mean, I'm sure you guys are very familiar with telecom companies, I'm sure that you have very similar practices in the States that we do up here. But like all the time, like Rogers, which is one of our big companies up here, will post, and it's
evil one.
everybody. Yeah, it's all of them. Rogers is fresh in my head because I just got an email from them. But like they'll post like these awesome, super amazing, super cheap deals for new customers, and it's like, but I've been your customer for 10 years and you're charging me 5 times this much. Screw you, Rogers. Like, help me out here and, you know, give me, a loyal customer, a deal. So like I definitely understand that perspective as well, because I'm like, hey, Hearthstone, you know who's been logging into playing standard every day? Hi. Like, where's my 150 packs? And I get it. I'm going to buy 150 packs, so why give them to me when I'm going to give you my dollars? I get that, but man, sad face.
So, one, theoretically, the rewards track gold is the way to pay off engagement. But second of all, remember how I said last subject, every subject is about being cynical about capitalism here in the Angry Chicken? And here we are.
I'm in a weird headspace now, so... But yeah, I totally understand the business behind it. And you're right. Like, you know, the rewards track does give away a lot of free gold for engagement. I get that. But man, there's just something about packs, right? Like,
you're very clearly not the only person to have this feeling. You are very clearly not the only person, as judging by everyone talking in our chat right now. Like, it's... People want 150 packs. I also would like 150 packs.
Right?
If Blizzard reach out and it's like, hey, do you want 150 packs? I'll be like, I'll take 2. I'll take 2. Yeah, it's like, it's fine. But it's like, logically speaking, more people playing standard makes me happier, even if they don't give me stuff. But
well,
also,
they gave you
like,
opponents, right? So they gave you short queue times.
And if they change their mind and they do want to give me stuff, like, I'm on board. I don't want to say I'm anti that. They can give us stuff.
Well, and I also really like, I totally get to, like, people getting things doesn't take anything away from me. Like, the fact that, you know, Hacker's sister got 150 packs and, you know, I didn't, I didn't know that till right now. It impacted my Hearthstone game 0. So, you know, like, it doesn't really like impact me or how I engage with Hearthstone or anything else. Like, I'm glad other people are getting this windfall, and I'm sure that there's other things in other games that I get that people who that's their main game, they're like, like there's something in WoW right now with like some Fell Drake mount or something everyone's pissed off about because it used to be TCG only and they're putting it in the game and everyone's like, no. And I'm like, well, that's cool. Now I get a mount I wouldn't have otherwise. So like, I've been on both ends of this spectrum, and yeah, sometimes it just... Yeah, I'm like, I'd like 150 packs. That'd be pretty neat.
I don't mean to be shady, but also, if you're saying that WoW players are mad about a change, I do believe you.
Yeah, maybe I didn't even need to go into any detail. It's just, yeah, WoW players be mad. That's it. That's the story. Yeah. That's the news. But yeah, speaking of stories and news, we have a lot of cards to cover. So before we do, we're going to take a quick moment and thank our sponsor.
Today's episode is sponsored by Honey, the easy way to save when shopping on your iPhone or computer. As you might expect from someone as wired in as I am, I online shop, well, all the time. I always see buttons or codes for some kind of discount, but I can never get them to work without it being a pain. Before Honey, I just didn't bother. The time I spent fighting with the website wasn't worth a couple of bucks. But now I just go to the same places I always shop, go to the checkout screen, and click the Honey button while I check Discord on my other monitor. When I'm done talking about the coolest new Death Knight card reveal, I look back and that price, it's lower. Not every site is working coupons, but I don't need to worry about it, because the app does the worrying for me. My glasses are basically always dirty, and I can never find a microfiber cloth when I need one, so I went to go look for a better solution. Found this nice 5-pack of microfiber cloths with clips on them, so I can leave them on my backpack, on my keyring, scattered around the house. And I was pleasantly surprised when $5 got cleaned off the price as soon as I hit the Honey button. I did this on my desktop, but you can do it on iPhone too. You activate it on Safari, and you can save on the go. If you don't already have Honey, you could be straight up missing out, and by getting it, you'll be doing yourself a solid and supporting the show. We'd never recommend something we don't use, so go get Honey for free at joinhoney.com/TAC. That's joinhoney.com/TAC. Thank you so much for supporting the brands that support the Angry Chicken.
All right, we have, oh my gosh, we have so much to talk about. We're only talking about DK today. As I mentioned, there are 54 cards. Now, one little caveat, if you are looking at the main website, it defaults to March of the Lich King. So you might look at the website and go, Joss, no, there's 5 cards. What are you talking about? Because that's definitely what I did earlier on today. But because they are adding cards not only to the March of the Lich King expansion, but there's also all the Arthas cards and there's the like core set and everything else. All of the Death Knight cards that are being added aren't necessarily under this whole March of the Lich King banner. So make sure that you choose standard and then it'll give you all of the cards instead of just the March of the Lich King cards. So there are 54 Death Knight cards. There's so much to get through. And guys, Hearthstone team, please, for the love of all that is unholy, give us a rune filter.
Or Frost or Blood.
Or Frost or Blood.
You love all that is unholy, or Frost or Blood.
Please give us a rune filter on your website, because right now there is no way, even searching for blood or frost or rune or anything like that doesn't actually parse out the cards based on their deck building rune cost, which is just so frustrating.
It's only visual, and if you want to be really frustrated, you see that view button in the top right where it's the grid. If you go ahead and click on the table list directly to the right.
Do I even want to do this? It's going to explode my overlay.
Go ahead. Do it.
Oh,
there's no rune information at all.
Oh,
none.
No.
You have to hover over the card art.
Oof.
So typically what happens here is that this pulls from the build that's live, from the client that is live. And the client right now does not have any rune information in it. So these will hopefully have rune tags when 25.0 goes live. I would love for it to be sooner. If you do go to the deck builder and you pick a card, it is smart enough to filter out the cards that you can't put in your deck because of rune requirements. The DK builder dropdown has 3 rune slots. It reds out like a red overlay the cards that you can't add to the deck. But it doesn't remove them from the list, it just turns them red. And there's no way to actually filter by rune type in the card list. So I'm hoping this changes in the near future, but it's not even in the cards that are being pulled, so none of the fan sites have it either.
Yeah. So yeah, hopefully once it actually goes live in the client, we will see some changes to our ability to actually parse out this information. Because like I said, it's a lot of cards. It's a lot to kind of like, if you're looking for something very specific, I was like, oh, this is going to be great. I'll just filter by blood. We'll talk about blood. Nope. So if you're looking for something specific, it's really easy to miss right now. So hopefully there is some of that functionality, and hopefully there's some of that functionality in the client as well, but we'll have to see. So first we're going to talk about blood. And as Hat mentioned, we don't actually have all of the blood cards yet. All of those reveals are going to be finished off tomorrow. So we don't have quite as many to kind of like point your attention to, but we do have some pretty cool cards for blood Death Knights. So Vampiric Blood, I think, is the first one you wanted to talk about, right, Hat?
So generally speaking, we're going to try and talk about these cards and these specs the way that they talk about reveals, of trying to keep things in packages and give context. I pulled out a couple of cards that we can talk about, that we can call out. We're going to talk about each legendary individually because, people want to know about the legendaries, even though a lot of them are free.
Fancy.
They are fancy, they're shiny, all that. And we're going to try and talk about all the triple rune cards because they're also fancy. Because triple rune is the reason to play this spec and only this spec. But we're not going to go card by card, and we're going to try and call them out here and there where we can. I don't know. We're just kind of winging it right now and figuring out how we're going to talk about this giant jumble of stuff. So Blood DK it's like if Control Warrior and a Soul Shard Demon Hunter met in the middle. It's if you had, instead of armor, you had a lot of lifesteal and a lot of damage-based removal, then that's kind of where Blood DK goes. Very tanky, not really focused on ending the game. Much more focused on prolonging the game. If you have played WoW, then you know that Blood DK is the tank spec.
Correct.
Their job is to get hit, and then take damage and then
still
heal it all
live.
back.
Yeah.
Yep. And I don't like they have some movement mechanics. I don't know if we'll see grip of some kind in this set, but I imagine that we will because their
Oh,
big
that would
thing
be
is like
so cool. Death grip
you got to
is
do
huge.
something.
You have to have a death grip. You have to. That's like
I
the
feel like the
only
entire
reason to have
class-
DKs.
The entire class is about like slurping enemies right up to you. You just like you hit them with the blood and it's like and you slurp them.
Yeah.
That's the technical term. So like I imagine there will be something along those lines here. Like Blood DK, they were really, really good when in Legion in WoW, because they had pretty good damage output and they were very, very hard to kill. So I would imagine that this is also going to be a hard class to kill with a ton of lifesteal. But if you want your games to be short, probably not this one. Because if you look at Vampiric Blood, 2 mana, rare spell, triple blood rune, give your hero 5+5 health. Not heal, give +5 maximum health. And you spend 3 corpses to gain 5 more and draw a card. As a reminder, whenever anything says spend corpses, if you have that many, it uses them. You don't get a choice. It glows yellow. It does the extra thing. And corpses are generated whenever a friendly minion dies. Unless the minion is risen, or it says so in the text box that it does make a corpse. But the vast majority of things, when they die, they make a corpse. And if they don't, they'll tell you.
Yeah. And so 3 corpses, I mean, it doesn't really seem like very many because basically if you could activate this card, it's just Renathal, right? Like you go from 30 max health to 40 max health.
Renathal, you get the 10, and it's effectively 10 armor right away because you get the 10 health. Like you not just increase your max, but you fill it. So you gain 10 life and you draw a card. If it was just 2 mana, gain 10 armor, draw 1 card. That would be good. That's what if shield block was 1 mana less and double the effectiveness.
But then, I mean, the fact that it's health, though, especially in a class that has a ton of lifesteal, you're talking about like refillable armor, right? They can, increase their max health to 40 with this card, potentially, if it's active, and then lose it and heal it up again and lose it and heal it up again. So there's that, give and take that you don't necessarily get with armor. Once this change to their health has been made, it's made, period. So this seems really powerful, though I'm not sure, like, this isn't like a turn 2 thing, right? Like, it's going to be pretty hard to have 3 corpses by the time you're ready to play this card on turn 2.
Yeah, I would guess that this is intended to be played a little bit later into the game. It's 2 mana. It draws you a card right away. You don't need to slam this on turn 2 right away. It's blood does not seem like it's great.
You need the corpses to draw the card, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't envision people just slamming this for 5 health.
10 health and a card.
Yeah, I'm thinking of this as the main mode is the 10 and draw because you're never slamming this just for 5 health unless you are truly desperate. I was gonna say, would you ever
make that call? Like, I'm thinking, I've tried a lot of aggressive decks when Renathal has been really prevalent, and the number of times I've gotten people down to, somewhere between like 2 and 8 health, like health they wouldn't have had without Renathal. But I feel like, if you're in a super aggressive matchup that you feel you might lose by turn 4 or 5, maybe you do slam it just for 5.
You can. It's an option that's available for you. It's playing this for 5 is better than being dead.
Yes.
I 100%.
You're on board
substantially
with that? Okay.
better.
I'm glad that at least some of my card analysis is spot on.
You're right. And flexibility is important. You can always just play this if you need to play this. If the 5 life right away and you won't have time otherwise, then sure. But I envision these decks being pretty inefficient in terms of development. Like if this was Control Warrior, then you would armor up on 2 almost every game. And I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of games you just ghoul charge go on 2 and just start piling up some bodies to make sure this is active because you're probably not going to have a lot of early minions outside of Body Bagger we'll talk about in a little bit, but you don't have to scroll to this. Don't scroll to this.
Okay.
It's a runeless 1 mana 1/3 that says Battlecry gain a corpse, right? So it is a body and it gives you a body, and then your hero power, that's 3, it's active on turn 3.
Right. I keep forgetting about the hero power. Oh my God.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if that is the intention here. If you play a low number of small minions just to try and get this online a little sooner. We haven't seen all the other blood cards, so we don't know if there's going to be any token stuff. Probably not. It seems pretty slow and removal heavy.
Well, yeah, the unholy minion kit is much more, or I guess the unholy kit is much more minion focused, right? They're the ones that are really good at generating things, whether it's, generating corpses or generating like having reborn stuff. Like unholy is very much I'm going to make my corpse pile big and then do stuff with it. So, I mean, you could maybe weave in some of those early unholy cards into your blood deck. No, you can't, because this is a
Not with this
3 blood card. Not with this one. I caught myself.
So
this is going to be so hard.
But it's fascinating because looking over the 3 different specs, they feel super different, and you can really tell when you're committing to a triple rune versus when you're thinking about splashable runes. It's dramatically different. I am very excited for the variety of play because this feels like we're getting 3 classes at once. And even though the rune system is technically a class limitation, it feels like it's an advantage, an upside for the player in terms of creativity, expression, and the power they can put in these cards. Even though when you pick a rune, it takes things away as to think what you can put in your deck. But I want to find a way to play Vampiric Blood, and I know that's going to be a different deck than a lot of the other ones I build, and it's going to feel like a different deck.
So, does Vampiric Blood go with the next card you want to talk about, which is Blood Boil?
It sure does, because Blood Boil, 5 mana double rune card. It's a shadow spell, if that matters. I don't know.
It might.
It might. You can multicast it. And you infect all enemy minions, so you permanently mark them. At the end of your turns, they take 2 damage, and it has lifesteal. So as long as those minions are around, you absorb 2 life from them. They take 2 damage, you gain 2, and it hits every turn. This is very clearly, when you put it next to Vampiric Blood, you see what this is about. It's get a bunch of extra room in your life total and then fill it up with your opponent's minion's blood. Just put it right in there.
That sounds so gross when you say it that way.
It is gross.
I guess. I don't know what I was picturing, but it wasn't that.
You are draining their blood for sustenance. It's vampiric
so we're
and
all
boil.
Vampires now? I thought we were zombies.
You were having you're having a pumpkin blood latte. Like, that's what's going on here. It's spooky season.
Oh, gross. Oh, hat. That's so disgusting.
It's hot. It's hot blood.
Gross. So gross. But yeah, it's a Blood Boil. So 5 mana lifesteal, infect all enemy minions at the end of your turn. They take 2 damage. The end of your turns. So yeah, it does happen over and over again. This is wild.
It's typically when we've seen these kind of marking mechanics, they happen once. That's not what's going on here. It keeps going, so you actually feel like it's a liability to leave your minions in play. I think it's pretty cool and very distinctive to how DK plays. It reminds me, there could have been a way to make this like an Affliction Warlock sort of thing, but I'm glad they did it for DK because it fits really well with what Blood does.
Yeah, it really does. And I think that like we're probably going to have the conversation a lot over the coming months about, does DK feel unique enough? Because that's always the conversation around bringing a new class in Hearthstone, right? Like, how successful were they in making it feel unique? And so like we're going to probably look at cards like this and say, yeah, that could have belonged to, class XYZ, but it's really cool that it's in Death Knights because it enables all the other stuff that they do as a Blood or a Frost or an Unholy or whatever. So I think that those conversations are going to be really interesting, but you're right. Like, they do seem to, the combination of like corpses and rune, like the deck building restriction does make it feel very much like its own thing. And I'm glad that they've like found room for some of these, like infecting enemies. Like, that's a big Death Knight thing too. So if you've never played WoW, Death Knights, these are all diseases that Death Knights inflict. They're all things that you give your enemies that do things over time. So this is very, very like WoW DK.
Yep. And they drew on a lot of the anachronisms from WoW, especially launch DKs and Lich King. Because I think I can't remember if we talked about it on this show or other shows. The should every class have runes
Mm.
conversation.
I don't think
But
we had that
the way
conversation.
okay, I can't keep track of all
I
my
know
podcasts,
you do
but
too many Hearthstone shows. That's all.
it's true. The way that runes worked in Launch DK in Wrath of the Lich King is that you had a rune talent tree and you picked what you wanted to specialize in, and there are a lot of references, direct references to the mechanics of Lich King DKs and the mechanics of DKs in Hearthstone. I mean, we had Chad on last week. He is a WoW nerd that also is a Hearthstone nerd, and he very much married his two loves here in the client, and you can really see it, and it captures the vibe a lot more quickly for me than I think Demon Hunter did, even though I like Demon Hunter and I played a lot of it in Legion, and I think they got the Vengeance versus Havoc split down now. I feel the difference after a couple expansions. DK, I can feel the difference looking at the card library.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're really right. Like, I mean, I've been playing some Classic since they launched the Wrath of the Lich King Classic expansion, and I've been playing a Death Knight, and it is very like it was so like shocking.
Overpowered.
Well, I was just gonna say it was so shocking as someone coming from like starting in Pandaria. I was just like, what is this system? This like I can pick some from this and some from this. Like this is wild and crazy. And I think they're trying to go back to that in modern WoW and Dragonflight. And this is too much WoW talk. I know, apologies, Hearthstone listeners, but I do think they've done a really interesting job here, kind of incorporating that together. And letting you play around with these different combinations of, like mostly, tanky, but with a little bit of maybe frost damage thrown in there. And like, again, that is very like on release Death Knights in Warcraft. So I think they did a really, really good job with like class fantasy launch feelings here. So do you want to talk about munching some gnomes?
I could use a snack.
Yeah. So Gnome Muncher is a 6-mana 5/6 taunt lifesteal undead minion, only worth 1 blood rune, and it says, excuse me, at the end of your turn, attack the lowest health enemy. So could be a minion, could be your opponent, depends. If they've got no minions, this hits face, right? I like face.
So, as someone who likes face, I want you to imagine it is turn 6 and your opponent plays this. What sound do you make?
Ugh.
Yes. I think this card is being slept on in a major way. Like, and it goes face it, like it can have charge in some circumstances. It can go through taunts because the lowest health enemy does not care about taunt.
Mm-hmm.
And also, this probably is a Ziliax. It probably gains your opponent 10 health or so, assuming if it hits a 3/3 and then is traded into by another 3/3, it kills 2 3/3s and gains 10 health. That's annoying. I'm annoyed.
Yeah, I think that Ziliax comparison is not too far off, I don't think. I mean, it just the fact that it has taunt, and like you say, the first attack can bypass taunt is really interesting. If this just said like attack and it had to go through something my opponent wanted it to hit anyway, that wouldn't be great. But I think that yeah, you can do some setup, especially with blood, where they seem to be more controlly and they have some of those removal tools. You can kind of set things up to make this a really powerful turn 6 play, right? You can maneuver it in such a way that it hits the thing you want it to hit and survives. So I like this a lot. And if you just play it on an empty board, then bam, it's 5 to the face. Like, that's amazing.
I think it is just a powerful, efficient mid-range both threat and answer that can't be ignored no matter what, and it seems like game-endingly powerful against some aggressive strategies. I don't hear a lot of podcasts that aren't mine talking about it, so I want to talk about it in all of mine, because I think this is something that if you're playing an aggressive deck and you run into our boy Gnome Muncher here, I think you're going to really have some words and feelings about this card. And it being single rune, there's going to be a lot where we scroll through this episode and see cards that are only single rune. They are meant to be splashed into other strategies. So you could put this in an unholy build that's trying to go longer for Marogar, and this will keep you in the game longer in a major way, and you can guide where it hits by trading with your unholy tokens with your zombies, whether you're endless undead, or you can do it in Frost with some direct damage, or just play this to survive. There are a lot of different ways for this to be very powerful, and I think it's just going to be a brick wall in the middle of the game that's somewhere between Elitist Snob and Ziliax. It's pretty powerful, pretty strong.
It does seem really strong, and I'm excited to see what the control style looks like once we get all of the blood cards. But we can't leave blood without talking about Patchwork. So
Patchy boy.
Yeah, Patchwork is just so iconic. I mean, I get like apologies for going too far into WoW, you guys, but
it cannot be ignored. The amount of callbacks they're doing.
Yeah.
The amount of callbacks they're doing in this set so far are crazy. Like there are a lot of references here to Wrath of the Lich King, to Icecrown Citadel. This was Lich King stuff. Is the most popular WoW expansion, the most popular Hearthstone expansion. You're going to get callbacks here. The lore matters to anyone that was even close to being there. And so you're going to hear a lot about it because we're freaking out.
Yeah. So Patchwork is a super iconic boss in Warcraft. And to the point that like when I started playing was post Lich King, and people would talk about a patchwork fight. And I was like, I don't even, at first I thought it meant like a fight with a whole bunch of different things in it. Cause I was like, it's a patchwork fight. There's lots of bits put together, right? No, it means one big tanky boss that's a DPS check. And this is still used in WoW as like, or not in WoW, but like in community and stuff like that. When you're doing like damage simulations and stuff, it's like a setting you can choose. It just says patchwork fight. And you just have to know that that's like the vernacular of the community. And it hasn't changed since Wrath of the Lich King came out, that just like patchwork fights are your single target big damage fights where you don't have to move and do anything. Oh, Patchwork's from vanilla? It wasn't from vanilla either. Spoiler alert.
Yep, he was a Naxxramas boss.
Oh, Nax.
So,
okay, that's why.
Yep, Nax is officially
Nax
out,
was
by
twice.
the way.
Nax is out?
Yes.
What?
And yeah, the WoW mechanic, it's patchwork fights are something called an enrage timer. If you didn't kill him in 6 minutes, he got mad and killed you. Like, not he might have killed you. No, that's what he did. You had 5:59, because at the 6 minute mark, either he was dead or you were dead. Those were your choices. So,
which I do kind of love, because you know that the fight's not going to go on for forever. Unlike some of the fights in Sylvanas, 12 minutes. Ugh. Anyways, yeah.
Speaking of games that are going to go on too long, let's talk about Blood DK.
Yes. So yeah, Patchwork is really, really iconic. So this is a 7 mana 4/6 with a battle cry that reads 7 mana 4/6. I'm not used to saying this. Undead minion that battle cry destroys a random minion, not card, minion in your opponent's hand, deck, and battlefield. And
yep, doesn't have to be the same one. It's not name matching, just a random hit in all 3 zones.
Yeah, which lots of people I've seen crying, broken, OP, crazy. What do you think, Hat? Broken, crazy, OP, what?
I mean, it's a solid card. If you're playing this, you're pretty clear what you're about. Mutinous is rotating 4 months after this card comes out. This is a Mutinous replacement. It's a random hit in hand. So all the people that were complaining about Theotar said if he was random, he wouldn't be good enough. Well, here you go. Stop complaining. And it's a deadly shot and a Gnome Feratu and a Mutinous without the stats. We're going to play this in Blood. We're not splashing for this most of the time. Like, you have to want the game to go on for a while, because the value here is taking away a resource that has not yet been realized in cards they haven't played. Cards in hand and cards in deck. If you only care about the minion in play, there's a 7 mana deadly shot. It is not exciting. So you have to care about the potential disruption and the potential value denial. Really shows you what Blood's going to be about. But I imagine this card will be overplayed and people will complain about it, and it's going to be like decent card.
Every single time you say that, like it's going to be a splash card, I just pictured like somebody getting like splashed with blood and being like, ugh, Oh, splash. I don't know why. It's just every time you say that, I picture somebody like stepping in a puddle of blood and getting splashed. Weird.
I think it's pretty accurate. That's kind of what's going to happen. No, it's okay.
Just need a little splash of blood. That's all.
So if you splash Unholy, it's a little splash of like bile.
Oh. I feel like
Ichor?
splashing frost is like a snowball fight, and I'm okay with that. The other two are gross.
Yeah. Okay, we're committing only frost splashes.
Yes.
Just like imagine two patchworks out there having a little snowball fight. That'd be
hilarious.
You know what?
Love it.
I hope they have a good time. I hope they go have a snowball fight.
He
deserves
it. He deserves it. Oh my god. And then finally, one card we did want to talk about just very, very briefly is Obliterate. It is a blood card. It is 1 rune. And if you played in Frozen Throne, you will remember Obliterate came from Lich King. It was a Lich King card. So you can destroy a minion and your hero takes damage equal to its health. This was one of, if I remember correctly, the best Lich King cards. You were pretty happy to see this one.
It was one of the cheapest, so yes, what you said. Because if you got castable, you were thrilled. And this was consistently castable. They didn't keep many of these Lich King cards.
Lich King cards, yeah.
They kept 3 of them nearly unchanged. They reworked one of them and they got rid of the other 4. So this is one of the ones they kept. All they did is they slapped a rune and a red filter on the art. And it's enough. But I do think, like, you can put it in your deck now. I don't think it's broken, but I imagine we'll play it because this is one of the few ways that Blood DK has so far to kill things without damage. You take damage, but you don't need to deal a specific amount. All the other removal we've seen so far is deal some amount of damage. You need something that kills through Divine Shield or kills a large enough minion. And with Empiric Blood, Blood Boil, whatever, you're probably not too worried about getting that health back.
Yep, that's fair. So that's blood. That's basically what we've seen so far. Again, we're going to get more blood cards tomorrow, and then we are done with Death Knights completely. We will know all of the cards, so I'm sure we'll have a quick Death Knight roundup next week as well. So Frost, it's time to get frosty. Hat, are you excited? What does Frost do?
Frost is for me. They made Frost for me.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of rogue, it's a little bit of mage, and it's a lot of bit of damage.
Well, it's a little bit of druid too, right? Because they do mana like cheaty generate-y things.
It's like it's more the way that mage does mana stuff, I think, because it's most of the mana cheating is your next X costs less or refresh crystals. So I think it's going to be closer to like a mana biscuit or even the way that shaman cheats mana sometimes. But it's like, I don't know, TK is its own thing. I keep trying to compare it to other classes. It's really its own thing. But when you look at Frost, what you're looking at is a big emphasis on draw, a big emphasis on direct damage, some mana flexibility. The minions are pretty underrate most of the time, and we're not good at removing things without using direct damage. Like, it's not very removal heavy. But it
you don't
freezes
need to
a little
remove
bit.
Things if you just kill the face.
See,
I'm
is why I
getting
like
it.
Why I like it. Yes. And there are some freezy spells, but this is not Snowfall Guardian the class. Like, there are not that many things that freeze. There are enough that you're not going to like it if you're playing a bunch of minions and you get frozen a couple turns, but it's not like all the deck does.
Which is good, because I think that was my big like worry / question when we saw the DK reveal last week, because they definitely mentioned like frost spells and freezing as a mechanic. It would be the thing that frost DKs did. And I just think of trying to play any minions against mage right now with their location and just like flurry and everything feels so frozen always. And I was like, I don't really want a whole other class, especially the class that is very much the new hotness, to be just freezing everything all the time, because then I know every game I go into is going to be Frost DKs freezing all my stuff all the time, and I'm not going to have any fun. So I'm glad that it's kind of a little bit like few and far between. Little hints of Frost are okay.
There are going to be some cards that people dislike because they do freezy things. We'll talk about Frostworm's Fury in a second. But mostly this is about drawing and damage, and I like both those things. Like, I'm a fan. So when you look at Overseer Frigidara, 6 mana, double frost, for a 5/6 legendary minion. Battlecry, draw 2 spells. If they're both frost spells, deal 2 damage to all enemies. So for 6 mana, draw a couple cards, probably do some damage because she's double frost. Maybe you splash, maybe you don't. Depends if you got any blood in your clothes or whatever. But it's a 5/6, draw 2 cards, consecration. It's the Costco of value. It's just a package deal of a whole bunch of things.
I love that.
You wouldn't pay this for any one of these effects, but combined, any 2 of these is probably worth 6 mana, and they throw in the 3rd one.
Yeah, I think that's fair. She looks really good. I think we're probably going to see a lot of her, and not just her card effects, but her card art. Like, a lot. I really love a lot of the art in this set. It's really good.
It's really good.
Really, really good.
The art this year.
Yeah.
This whole year. Like, Voyage, I think, was a big step up in art direction, generally speaking. And that excellence feels like it's continued both into Nathria and into what we've seen so far of March.
Very much so. Lady Death Whisper. So this is another spell-oriented thing, though a death rattle, not a battle cry, which could potentially be relevant because you're in a little bit less control as to when this effect actually goes off. However, 4 mana, 4/3, 3 frost runes. So this is another one of those that's like meant to be deck defining. Like, if you go full frost, this is one of those super powerful payoff reward cards. So it is 4/3 undead minion. Death rattle, copy all frost spells in your hand. So again, very much going down that frost path. Like, this is the thing you're going to do with her. And I think even if you hit like 1 or 2 things with this effect, that's probably enough to make it worth it. The 4/3 stat line isn't terrible for a 4 mana minion when you also want it to die.
Yeah. This is so. A lot of people have been concerned. We have a question later in the show about Denathrius. A lot of people are concerned the way that games are going to end is Denathrius. I look at Lady Death Whisper and I say, I don't think that's going to hold true for the rest of this expansion. I don't know what other classes are going to do, but I know that this class, this is a card you play when you want to kill people from your hand. That's what you're trying to do here. There are other cards that work with it that we'll talk about in a second, but like, you play this card when you want to do some evil shit and kill. That's what you're doing. So the death rattle over the battle cry.
I mean, this is going to be like, it's a 3 frost rune cost in when you're deck building. So like, we're going to just have Death Whisper DK, right? Like, we're naming decks after her.
Yeah, it's Frost DK, right? Like, it's you're gonna kill people in 1 turn by doing some messed up shit. Like, that's what we're trying to do. And I love the death rattle over the battle cry because it makes the card worse. And as someone that wants to play Frost,
this needs to be worse.
When I picked up Demon Hunter and Ashes, I like a lot of what Demon Hunter was doing, but it was very, very clearly too good. And I didn't want to get attached because I knew that I was going to get hurt. But looking at a card like Lady Death Whisper, building Frost deck lists with the cards we have, it looks fun. It looks like something I want to play, and I don't think they're going to need to nerf it right away. Because when I play Lady Death Whisper, I am signaling to my opponent, I want this to die so then you can die. And they get to work around it, and they get an extra turn because I have to work to kill this. There's some counterplay. They can decide, what if I don't play anything with more than 3 attack? What if I'm minion light? And they get to hold back. And then I have to work as the Frost player to kill it, and that's probably using one of my Frost spells. There's some counterplay. There's some interactivity here, and it's not just all about immediate value that you can't stop. You can do something about this. And if I choose to not let you, then that means I'm playing a little slower. So as the person that wants to do this to people, I feel like it's going to be safer as a meta influence because there's some inherent counterplay here. There's some, people love to say it, I'm going to say it, interactivity.
Oh, you used the I word.
I did. So I think it's going to be rad, and I think it's going to work often, but it's going to work a lot less than other more evil cards have worked in the past. Like, this is not Brand Kael'thas Denathrius, where just it's turn 9, it's like, well, that happened to me. This is you see it coming, and there's some way that you can work around or make it more difficult for the person trying to use it.
Right, because I mean, obviously, as a death rattle, it can be transformed, it can be silenced. Like you said, you can choose not to play minions into it. Like, there's all kinds of stuff that you can, you have to make your opponent have it, right? Have the three damage spell to be able to kill this on their own, and then they've used it up, right? So then they also don't get to double it.
Yep.
So there's all kinds of play here and different strategies you could have to deal with this. So this feels like an interesting but fair, you're right, combo enabler. So yeah, I think I mean, knock on wood, who knows, but it's probably safe, right? That's not going to come back to bite me in the ass.
I want it to be like dating in high school, where there's a hint of danger.
Oh my God. Ugh.
Tell me that's not an accurate metaphor. Tell me.
It's pretty accurate. Okay. The Thessarian. Stupid made up fantasy names. 4 mana.
Thessarian.
Thessarian. I don't know why that is warping my brain. I think too many S's and too many A's in that that name.
Yeah.
So 4 mana 3/3 undead minion with Reborn, Battle Cry and Death Rattle, same thing. Deal 2 damage to a random enemy. Only a 1 Frost Rune card, so splashable.
And so this gets 3 procs, right? It's a 4 mana 3/3, but when it comes into play, pew. When it dies the first time, pew. And when it dies the second time, pew. So it's a pew, pew, pew. It's 3 pews.
Yes.
As is tradition. Yeah, like, I'm gonna throw this in Unholy. Like, in Unholy and Holy Frost, like, this goes in every time. Reborn is a huge deal for corpse generation.
Oh,
and
right.
This is just splashable. Just it's snowball fight. Snowball fight.
Snowball fight time. Got it.
Yep. Man, can you imagine just like Thessarian's out there? He just jumps on Patchwork's back, and they fall back in the snow and make little snow angels laughing the whole time. Go inside, have some hot
about
cocoa.
That now, especially Patchwork with his weird third arm. That's gonna be a weird looking snow angel with 3 wings.
It's like Love Actually, but with undead abominations. Anyways, so it's like the body here. The 4 mana 3/3 is not a great rate, but you get a lot of pings and a couple corpses. I envision this seeing play, even though this fits the Frost spec of all the minions are kind of crappy. None of them are really great rates.
Don't take
but they
it
do
personally.
something for you.
Thessarian.
They can't be good at everything.
Yeah.
The point is to not be good at everything. So this is good at corpse generation and throwing around some snowballs.
Right, and so it's also random enemy, not enemy minion. So again, can go face, which, frosty people are gonna like. Probably undead people are gonna like. So yeah, I think that the undead, I meant unholy. Oh man, so many new terminologies to learn. So yeah, I think this design is really interesting, and yeah, it does have the corpse generation, which is a mechanic that I keep forgetting about, that they're going to be cards that have payoffs for having things die. And I did see in the chat room, Kieran had said all these death rattle cards making Smothering Starfish look real good again. How do we feel in general about silency effects with all of these seemingly pretty powerful death rattle cards, especially with the one we just talked about, Lady Death Whisper, being, potentially a combo enabler, like pretty central to the deck. What do we think about going back to possibly Starfish, maybe other effects?
I'm glad they nerfed Starfish, because it would be pretty unpleasant on launch day to just have all your cool stuff not happen. You can make a choice now. If you want to run Starfish, so it's not a good card. It's a tech card, but it's not a good rate. It takes up your whole turn 4. It's a pretty medium card that has a specific use case. That's what tech cards should be for. Right? It's a safety valve. If these are too good, you can Starfish if you want to. There are other silence effects that are going to be more powerful and class-focused. Shard of the Naru, a pretty powerful 1 mana silence effect. I imagine that Priest will be happy to have that. But also, if you're the Frost DK and you're playing against a deck with silences, you probably just kill your Death Whisper the turn you play her.
Yeah.
Like if it's that
fair.
important, then you play differently for it. But you could add silences and they might be relevant. Interactivity. It's an option available to the players to dynamically change how they interact with the game. I like it. I'm about it. I don't think we'll see a lot of Starfishes because it's a bad card that undoes your opponent's fun as opposed to a card that lets you have your own fun. But if your fun is an undoing fun, it is an option that's available to you.
I mean, I do like ruining people's day, so therefore, Starfish is the card for me, is what I'm hearing.
It could do that. I do think the rate on the body is probably bad enough that if you silence these things, they just hit you in the face with them anyways. It might not be as good, but it might be enough because you're playing a 4-mana 2/4. It's hard to say. I think in those interactions, I'd rather be the person that's not playing Starfish, but we have to see how it plays out. It does mean you can't really go all in because Theotar still exists even though he'll cost 6.
Yeah. Ugh. Yeah. So we have another 3 Frostrune card. So another kind of spec defining, deck building defining card here. 6 mana 5/5 undead minion called Marrow Manipulator. With a battle cry, spend up to 5 corpses. So however many you have between 1 and 5. Because if you have no corpses, this won't do anything, right? There is no do it and then. So spend up to 5 corpses. So 1 to 5 corpses, however many you have. Deal 2 damage to a random enemy. Again, enemy, not enemy minion. So this can go face for each corpse. So yeah, up to 10 damage on a 6 mana 5/5. Random in 2 damage pews, but again, if you've got an empty board on the other side, that's a lot of pews to face. This is kind of like Avenging Wrath on a body. It's my favorite paladin card, so anytime I can think of it's like Avenging Wrath, I'm gonna think it's like Avenging Wrath.
I mean, it's pretty similar, right? And you get the body out of it, but given what we've seen in Frost so far, how do you feel about the 5 corpses thing?
Well, I think it's okay because it's very specifically a 3 Frost card. So we just talked about the guy, Thessarian. I didn't have his name on the screen. I couldn't think of it. So we just talked about Thessarian. And so he is 3 corpses on his own. Plus you do also have the hero power, right? But you have to push that hero power button, which means you're not doing other Frosty things. And Frost feels a little bit more aggressive. It feels a little faster. And I don't think that I want to make a 1/1, even a 1/1 with charge, when I could be doing almost anything else. That's my gut feeling. However, if I am playing Thessarian and I've had him die all of his times, I mean, this is still 6 damage, right? If that's the only other minion that's died, or if I've even hero powered a couple of times, like for whatever reason, like you do always have the potential as a DK to generate a corpse every turn. So I think that it's maybe not as much of a kind of restriction necessarily. Like you could potentially get up to 5. I think it's probably more realistic that you'll get 2 or 3 by turn 6 when you want to be playing this, because this feels like something I want to play on curve. Maybe not something I want to hold for later. Like I think it's better to throw it down with 3 corpses on 6 than wait a couple more turns until I get full value, right? Like this feels like a play it when you get it card. And 100%. So yeah, and I think that because it does have that deck building restriction, this is okay. I think this would be totally broken if it could go in an unholy deck, or if you could splash some of that green goo onto a deck with this in it. That would be a bad thing. So I think that it's properly rune costed, which is now a thing we have to talk about.
Yeah. it's properly like ruined, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
Appropriately
you can
ruined,
tell-
not ruined.
Yes.
Now I can't even say it again. Appropriately ruined.
You can tell that they really don't want Demon Hunter to happen again.
Yes.
Because this card is
Good call.
It's a restriction. Yeah, very good call. It's a restriction both with runes and with corpse cost, because Frost is easily the worst spec at making corpses.
Mhm.
Like they want things to be alive and frozen, not dead. So it's very, very bad at making corpses, and they just don't have that many minions. So I have done some Frost deck building already. Most of the lists that I'm building so far have not had this in it, because I think getting 5 corpses is going to be challenging, even up to 3. If I'm hero powering, I'm unhappy, like you said.
Mm.
I do think there is probably a deck with Thessarian and that has more of a minion presence. It is purposely built, but it feels like you have to work for it. It feels like it's something you have to try to want to do, and the payoff for that is Marrow Manipulator. And I love that even within a spec, in a third of a new class, there still seem to be a bunch of different options as to which way to go, and we don't know which one is going to be the best or which way to use it. So I really like that. I look at this card and I say, I feel like 5 Corp is going to be a stretch unless I really work for it in deck building. For 1/3 of a brand new class that has not come out yet, to already have ideas and tension in the deck building, I think is pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's a pretty big win. And the other thing that I'm noticing with a lot of these cards, like we talked last week when Demon Hunters, when Death Knights were first announced, we talked about how the whole rune idea, that deck building condition, is very much another knob they can twist on the balance side of things, as well as corpses, right? Like if this turns out to be not powerful enough, they could say, okay, Frost DKs are only ever getting 2 corpses online by the time this is playable, and if they wait for 5, the game's already over. Then, you know, maybe they can say, oh, well, what happens if we tweak the 2? Like if we make it 3 damage each, or, you know, what if we made this a 2 rune Frost spell, but then toned it down to 1 damage each? Like there's a lot of things that they can play with here if this turns out to be a major win or a major loss, right? So I think it's kind of cool that, like you say, it enables different strategies within a spec, because that was kind of my fear, was that you would be basically making 3 decks for Death Knights, and that was the way Death Knights were always going to play for forever, right? Is like you know, do minion swarming as Unholy, you sling spells as Frost, and you do control things as Blood, and stay in your lane. I was a little worried about the stay in your lane, but it seems like there are some potential things here that make it interesting, and you know, because you can do those splashes of other, I almost said other classes. That's how this feels almost. It's like 3 different classes. Yeah. So because you can do those splashes of other specs or other rune types, I think is going to make a big difference to the variety of the class as a whole. So yeah, I think Marrow Manipulator is very interesting in terms of like the balance and the design discussion. So very cool card.
Yes. And there are some other cards here. This next card might be a little too cool. Frostworm's Fury is, I think, the card that has the potential to upset people.
This gave me infestation feels.
Chills?
Yeah.
Gave you chills?
Yeah.
So
Ultimate infestation.
We recorded an episode of Coin Conceit that's coming out later tonight, just talking about the cards. And the title of that episode is going to be Ultimate Infestation. So, yeah.
Okay, so I'm not the only one that looked at this card and went, "Oh, the UI feels." So
it's very good.
Yeah, it's a 3 Frost rune, so another Frost only deck. And it is a 7 mana Frost spell, deal 5 damage, freeze all enemy minions. Bleh, and summon a 5/5 Frostworm. So that deal 5 damage and summon a 5/5 is where we get those infestation feels.
This doesn't freeze your own stuff. And Lady Death Whisper exists. So if you can play this 2 turns in a row, that is 25? right? That is because you deal the 5, you attack for 5 next turn. You deal 5 again, you attack for 10 the following turn. It's 25.
Yes, assuming they have no from hand removal.
Right. Or taunts. Or no muncher. No muncher very good against this. But that's a lot of damage. You can get another copy of this a lot of different ways. You can go looking for this a lot of different ways. And your opponent better have an answer. Because otherwise they can't do anything, they die. So I'm glad this is the only mass freeze card we've seen so far. I'm glad it costs 7. I'm glad it's triple frost. And there are ways to deal with it. Again, if I play a no muncher into this, I kill the 5/5, I get my life back. Doing okay. There are other ways to get in the way of this, but still, like, I get the feels. I get the feels you
I
talked
get
about.
those feels. So, yeah, I think this is another card I'm really glad has the 3 rune deck building condition tied to it so that it can't necessarily be too exploited, or at least like they can balance around it a little bit better. But it does feel like a little bit cheap for a pretty big effect, but we'll see. We'll see. A lot of this is going to be wait and see once we actually get our hands on playing this and what the meta looks like, but it feels really powerful, especially with some of the other cards that we talked about. Being able to draw spells, and if they're frost spells, getting another effect, like you just put 2 Frostworm's Fury in your deck and then you draw those 2 spells and then you feel pretty good about it, and then you duplicate them with, it's a lot. That's a lot of freeze, and that's like, I'm really glad again that this looks like the only, because we've got all the frost cards now, right? So I think we can fairly confidently say, unless there is some sort of neutral freeze card, because we do have neutral spells now that are a thing, but I really hope
Just
not.
the one.
I know just the one, but they've
fine.
opened that potential door now. So it needs to be part of the conversation. We haven't seen all the neutrals yet. That's coming in a couple days, but I think that this is a powerful card, as it should be, as a 3 rune card, but it's given me the feels, so hopefully it's not too bad, because you don't get the card draw, and that's what also, another part of Ultimate Infestation that made it so bleh, is that you got that big huge refill, and there's no refill here. So maybe you can do something about hat. No, you're making your Joce, you're being too optimistic face.
I don't think the format will be defined by this card, because you can throw taunts in the way and probably survive. But this is a powerful effect for 7 mana.
Yeah.
It's very good for 7 mana. So, like, I don't care about the card draw, because if you're dead, then I don't need more cards. And if there's ever a world where I get 2 of these in my hand and I Death Whisper, and this happens 4 turns in a row, if this happens to me 4 turns in a row, I'm going to be unhappy.
Yeah.
I will write a strongly worded letter.
There's talk in the chat room, again, from Kieran. Thank you so much for the comment. Can Living Dragon Breath rotate back into standard? So if you don't remember, that was the minion that you played that unfroze your minions. So without silencing, just got rid of the freeze effect. So right now is rotated out to wild. It's not in standard anymore, but perhaps with Death Knights and with more board freezes and things coming back into standard, maybe that's a candidate for core. We'll have to see, but I understand not bringing it back right now. Obviously they have the opportunity to kind of manipulate the core set as they see fit, but up till now we haven't seen big changes except at the standard year rotation. So I think it's good to give Death Knights 1 expansion's worth of freedom to freeze before potentially bringing in some really big counterplay, like some direct counterplay with Living Dragon Breath. But it's definitely, I think it's probably on the radar for sure. People don't like getting their shit frozen.
No, I don't.
Yeah,
I campaigned against Snowfall Guardian for months.
Yeah, I feel like it's probably one of the, if not the most hated mechanic in Hearthstone is the full board freeze.
Evolve?
I don't know, man. I think people will still take evolve devolve over full board freeze. Maybe we should do a poll. Let's do a Twitter poll or something after that and just see. What would you prefer? Evolve or
is it possible for both to lose?
How do I vote neither? I give negative votes. There's a couple more frost cards that you want to talk about, though. Death Chiller as well at
Yes.
2 mana. I'm going to scroll while you talk about Death Chiller.
No, I want to see your reaction. I don't know if you've seen this card yet.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Bam. Okay. 2 Frost Rune, 2 mana, 2/3 elemental. After you cast a spell, deal 1 damage to 2 random enemies, not enemy minions. Again, all of these random effects are going face. Keep that in mind. And yes, I have seen that. This is just Flamewaker, but chilly.
Yes. It
So
can't
cool.
go face twice. It can't hit anything twice.
Yes.
Yes. It is. Wait, can you say so cool in your so hot voice?
So cool.
That is going on the soundboard. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So it can't go face twice, which I'm grateful for. It costs a mana less than Flamewaker. Seems spooky. So I'm glad that it's going to be half as good at killing opponents, and I'm glad that it's going to hit a minion if there's a minion in play. But it's good, right?
Yeah. I don't think that there's any, like, no one is going to deny that this is a good minion. Like, 2 mana, 2/3, already good stat line, and then really good effect. Like, we have seen this time and time again in Hearthstone. This is a really good effect. So, I mean, even the mech shark dude, that's a pain too. That's when you do a thing, do other things. This is when you do a thing, do other things.
Yep. These are powerful effects, and we have a bunch of ways to get frost spells. So I don't know. This is the frost build that I want to work towards. That probably doesn't play Marrow Manipulator, because you don't want to generate corpses except for the one corpse, your opponent's, and so that isn't. That means the deck is going to be very spell heavy and very minion light.
Yeah, so I envision this getting played all of the time. I think we're going to see a ton of this. And this does have the 2 rune building condition, so you can splash some either Unholy or Blood on your Death Chiller should you wish. What do you think about like weaving in some of those other spells into a deck with a Death Chiller, or do you think we're just going Frost?
I don't remember what our cheap spells are in the other ones. Like, we haven't seen all the blood cards yet. Obliterate could be fine. I don't remember what our 1 rune Unholy spells are, but it's possible. I think there's one that generates 2 1/1s with Reborn, so if you want to do the corpse thing, you can do the corpse thing. Anti-magic shell, I think, only has 1 Unholy rune. Like, you could totally do an anti-magic shell, and then this becomes untargetable, and that could be good. Though I don't envision this living. Like, I imagine that the turn this comes down, someone's gonna, like, the game's gonna be over for someone,
Right.
And I don't know who it is, but I don't think the goal is like play this and then hope it lives, because I would not hope too strongly about that. I don't know. It's like I don't know if we have the spells to work for it. It's like, and if you splash Unholy, you can't play Marrow Manipulator because she's triple frost.
Yes.
So what's the point?
Fair enough. Okay, we have 1 more frost card to talk about. Repulsive Gargantuan. So this is
He big nasty. Big nasty is what we're calling him.
Oh, okay.
It's in his name.
Sorry.
His name is Nasty, Big. Repulsive Gargantuan.
Okay. I don't know why. That just really, really tickles me. So this is a 4 mana 3/6, 1 frost rune card. Undead minion. Enemy characters can't be healed. This is not a battle cry or death rattle or anything. This is a persistent effect as long as this thing is alive, which at 6 health for 4 mana, probably going to be a little while. A couple turns anyways.
He big nasty.
Nasty Big.
I put it in the show title already.
Okay,
It's like
good. As I scroll up, I'm like, dude, yeah. We have so many show title options tonight.
I don't know how necessary it will be to play him, but I know that I get annoyed when my opponent heals, and this makes that not happen. So like,
might be worth
maybe
a
we
slot
just throw it
just
in.
because it's the thing that you hate. And like we talk about this in Dead by Daylight with my Dead by Daylight friends group all the time, where it's like the perk that you run might not be meta, but if it counters the thing that you hate most in the game, then maybe you just run it, because why not? Like, if you hate when your opponent heals because heal is cheating, then play Big Nasty.
Yeah. And if they Denathrius you, well, it better be lethal, because they're not healing.
Yeah.
So
Makes priest sad.
I don't know how good this is, but I know that we're gonna see this come up in games, and I think it's gonna matter. And you can go and get this in your other DK decks for 1 Frost Rune. I imagine that's gonna happen.
So do you think that we are going to see this in like Master Tour level play, or is this just going to frustrate people on ladder? Like how techie do you think this is going to be?
Probably pretty techy, because usually if you have a lot of healing, you probably have a lot of removal too. It's a control tool, right? You use
Right.
healing when you're expecting the game to go long, and you don't do that without killing stuff. And if you're killing stuff, then you kill this and then heal. But I do think that if you play this into a non-lethal Denathrius turn, it gives that player some very difficult choices about what they're going to do. It doesn't stop armor. It doesn't stop vampiric blood. But it does stop like minion healing, and it does stop various lifesteal things.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's true. It's enemy
yeah.
characters, right? So it does affect minions as well. It's not only face. So
Correct.
yeah, there's definitely a lot of counterplay in tech here, which I like. All right. We are at our normal showtime. We still have a couple emails, and we still have Unholy to talk about. How you feeling, Hat?
Let's see how this goes. Those emails might wait till next week. We're not committing to finish them because I foolishly told you at the start, nah, it'll be fine. We have to get to these emails. That was a dumb thing to say.
Yeah.
So they're good emails, but we'll probably save them for
emails.
next week. Yes.
All right. So, Unholy, let's talk about corpses and zombies and reborn and swarming and all of that crazy fun stuff. Let's start with Plagued Grain, because again, going back to WoW lore, like this is crazy freaking awesome cool flavor. They've done such a good job. So Plagued Grain was a thing from Stratholme. It was basically like Arthas's I'm gonna do absolutely everything to save my people, including totally slaughtering my people. Like it was this like real schism between like him and Jaina. Like it was the moment was the culling of Stratholme, and it all came down to the Plagued Grain. So like this lore wise is such a cool and important card. But yeah, so it's a 1 mana 3 Unholy Rune card. Gain 4 corpses. Shuffle 4 crates into your deck that summon a 2/2 undead when drawn. This seems just really good. Like really good.
So it shows the different philosophy that's available to them for these 3 rune cards, because this is not a payoff, this is an enabler.
Yeah.
They do not want other specs having this much access to easy corpse generation.
Yeah,
you play this if you're all in on the corpse in, corpse out thing.
Yeah, this is like putting 4 corpses in the bank. This is like you're doing a thing turn 1 because this is what your deck needs to go. So I think like this, and then on top of that, so you've got 4 corpses. Now, the 2/2 undeads that summon when they're drawn, they're going to make you corpses as well, right? They don't have the does not make a corpse tag, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, they would have to say risen. Risen is the magic word.
Okay, that's it. Risen, not undead. Okay. Yeah, so then we're going to get...
The only things that they really don't want you making corpses out of are things that you already used corpses on. It's no double dipping. If it's not a double dip, then it's probably gonna increment your counter.
So this is 4 corpses right away and 4 more, so 8 total corpses if you go all the way through your deck, or have the luck to draw those those undead summon cards. So somewhere between 4 and 8 corpses, depending on the draw order of your deck. So very good setup, very good kind of not payoff card. What did you say? Enabling card. Words. Words are hard. And so
There's a stupid car alarm going off outside, so I'm going to give that a second.
Oh, I didn't hear it till right at the very end of your sentence. Did you want me to hang on before I move on?
I'm gonna mute. Let's give this a minute. I'm gonna give it a minute.
It may not stop. I don't know if he needs me to be quiet too. He did this.
I think it stopped. I didn't want to jinx it.
Oh.
I was saying this so nobody jinxed it. Okay. I'm not gonna say it. Yeah, it's if this was a card that if Plague Rain was 2 Unholy or even 1 Unholy, you would see it in every DK deck, and the corpse requirements would just not be a thing. You would just do whatever you wanted all the time. Now, if you want your corpse stuff to be always online, you gotta be all the way into Unholy. And I think it's a good choice.
Now, if I'm gonna get up to 8 corpses out of, well, I guess up to 16 corpses, because, you know, that wasn't a legendary spell, so I can play 2 copies in my deck, what might I want to do with all 16 of those corpses?
Bone Storm!
Bone Storm! So that was yelled by Lord Marogar, who was, again, a WoW boss. And so Lord Marogar is a 3 Unholy Rune minion, legendary undead minion. 8 mana, 9/7, with a battle cry that says, raise all of your corpses as 1/1 risen golems. So again, risen means they can't regenerate corpses. That have rush, and for each that can't fit, give 1 +2/+2. So think of and oh my god, now I can't remember the skeleton guy from Mage right now.
Kel'Thuzad.
Yeah, who raises all of your skeletons, and any skeletons that don't fit, they pew their damage. For any corpses that don't fit, they pew a buff to your minions.
So this is it's the same tech that they use as Kel'Thuzad. But I like that this is not the minion swarmy archetype. This is build up all your bodies over the course of the game and then smack them all onto the board. Because a lot of the Unholy cards, they use a few corpses here, a few corpses there. Marogar ain't about that life. He's about use them all at once and then make a giant board. Pretty rad.
Yeah. And so just to be clear, the battle cry doesn't buff him. So he's a 9/7. They buff only the other golems. So, right? And they all have rush. That's the other piece. They don't just get there, get big, and sit there. They get there, get big, and then can kill all of the other side, which is pretty wild. So, yeah. Very powerful, big payoff card.
It's if Kel'Thuzad and Militia. Remember Militia with the soul shards? The combination of those two. Where she summoned a 3/3 rusher for each soul shard in your deck.
Right. I'm not remembering this name, but I am definitely remembering that effect. Man, too many cards. Then we also have, we were talking about diseases a little bit earlier and infecting our opponents. We were going to be doing that with Unholy as well, because Unholy gets Blightfang. Now, this is a splashable Unholy card, which means it only has one, which means as if that's an actual term. But from our perspective here on TAC, means it has 1 Unholy Rune, which means you can put it into 2 Frost or 2 Blood decks as well. So 3 mana, 3/3 Beast. Not Undead Beast, which I thought was interesting since we do have that option now with the dual tags on cards. But yeah, so not an Undead Beast.
Oh, it's he alive, he's sick.
He is. Oh, he looks like he's throwing up, but he's a spider, so it's probably spitting poison. But anyways, doesn't matter. Battle cry, infect all enemies with a death rattle. Summon a 2/2 zombie with taunt for your opponent. So you are giving all of your opponent's minions a death rattle that says they give you a 2/2 zombie with taunt when that minion dies. It's very
they're
weird.
rewording this card.
Yeah.
Because this wording sucks. It's
like, I mean, I get it, but it's very weird and wordy for the back and forth of this, of who the opponent is.
It reads like a Magic card. This is how Magic cards are templated. That's what this reads like. It reads like Magic the Gathering card. But instead, they reword it. Chad already said they're rewording it. So I can say this wording sucks. He let me. He let me by endorsing the new word.
Got it.
So the new wording, Battle Cry, infect all enemy minions. When they die, you summon a 2/2 zombie with taunt.
Okay. That's better.
It's the same functionality, but it's clearly better, right? It's just everything that's in play, they get sick, and when those minions die, you get a 2/2 zombie with taunt.
Right, because it's all enemies, which when I first read this card, I was like, all enemies, does that mean the hero as well? Because chat room's asking right now, does your opponent, quote unquote, die if they play a hero card, and then would you get a zombie? And so I can see where the nuance, you need enemy minion. You need that minion word in there, I think. Like, I get the intention of the card, but there's definitely a whole bunch of interpretations. So I like the new wording. That's better. It's way better. So yeah, Blightfang getting new wording, but this is just it is a legendary, but it is the one unholy rune card, so it is splashable. Then we have the Scourge, which is basically the name of Arthas's undead army. This is a 9 mana 2 unholy rune spell. Fill your board with random undead. How do we feel about this? So it's 7 minions. We've seen there's the undead tag has been given to a lot of stuff, but there's also a lot of undead taggage that we have seen tonight in the DK cards. And they've been pretty powerful, though not necessarily synergistic. Obviously, we've talked about Unholy specifically making use of corpses. This is at least 7 corpses, maybe more, depending on reborns, depending on death rattles. So yeah, this is, I don't know. How do we feel about the Scourge?
I honestly think this is one of the best rogue cards in the set.
No hat, wrong class.
I think Rogue is going to play it more than DK will. You're going to jackpot Trickster into this, and it's probably going to be pretty good.
But you don't think anyone Unholy is going to play this?
It costs 9.
It does.
Like, 9's a lot.
And we're not talking about Frost, so we don't have any like mana manipulation. Although you could put some mana manipulation in if they're 1 rune Frost mana manipulations.
I do not envision my 10 mana turn going Glacial Advance the Scourge. It could happen, but I don't think that's where we're going.
But it could.
It could. Listen, this is a fun card. It's fun. If you want to play Puzzle Box of Arthas, you can if you want to. It's just a bunch of like.
Now that you've said it like that.
Yeah, you can. Is it competitively costed? Absolutely not, unless you're a rogue. In which case, this costs 4, and that's better. But if you're putting this in your deck, it's fun. I want to see people cast it. I hope people do on day 1. I don't think this is competitively costed. I don't think it's meant to, and I don't care that it is. It's a fun card.
So if we were to competitively cost this, what would you want it to cost?
I wouldn't. I don't want this effect to be something that's ever balanced around the power. Like, if you ever make this good, it's so toxic. Like, if you ever make this a 6 or 7 mana card and you just ramp into it and cheat it out or whatever, then it's too much. So you're when you make a design like this, you're kind of committing to it being splashy and underpowered in a competitive sense, because you want the people that want to play this to go out of their way for it, and then no one else feels obligated to. So it's a fun, cool moment that people are choosing to engage with.
Yeah.
If you make it competitively costed, people don't get to choose to engage with it. You have to play it if you want to win. And if it comes down to Scourge rolls as to who wins a Masters Tour, that's not where you want to be. So
That's
I
fair.
don't think that they shouldn't make an attempt to make this highly competitive, because that is not the metagame that anybody wants.
I'm definitely going to try this. I'm going to try to make this work somehow. I mean, it is a one of, it's a
Yeah.
legendary spell. I think it's, I don't know. It just like, it's the kind of shit I love in Hearthstone. So I'm going to try to make it
Yeah.
work. Yeah.
It's a very Hearthstone-y card. I
It
like
is.
it. I enjoy it. It's great. I also won't need to play this to get legend, and I like that I don't have to do that.
That's fair. I don't necessarily like when I'm trying to be competitive, relying on random rolls like that to hit whatever my competitive goal is. So they also got like bloodlust. Basically, I was so confused when I saw your unholy notes, because literally in the show notes, Hat wrote "Go wide and bloodlust." I'm like, this isn't shaman. What are you talking about? I'm like, oh, grave strength. Okay, so this is one of your unholy payoff cards. So this is a 3 unholy rune card, 4 mana. Give your minions +1 attack. Spend 5 corpses and give them +3 instead. So this is one of your payoff cards. It's your corpse spenders. This is the thing where, like you say, you want to go wide and then get angry. Except this is like, lust doesn't stick, right?
This is not
sticks.
temporary attack.
Yeah, this sticks.
This is permanent attack for 1 mana less. Like, it's, you got to work harder for it. You got to have bodies, but this is a lot of damage, right? Like, this is a fully leveled conviction on turn 4 if you want it to be. I do want it to be. I want to hit people.
Yeah, and again, this is the 3 unholy rune card. One of the 3 unholy rune cards. So it is meant to be played in that minion swarmy deck. It's meant to be, that all the way down that unholy path. And I think that's okay. And I really like that they can design these kind of super powerful cards. Like you said, it's permanent attack. It does have the condition of the corpses, but that's something Unholy wants to do anyways. It's 1 mana cheaper than Bloodlust. But I think that's okay within the context of these deck building conditions that DKs have. So I think it's really interesting. And I don't think they're going to have a problem generating 5 corpses, and I don't think that they're going to have a problem having a board full of minions to get this buff. So I think you're going to see this all the time, probably on curve.
Yep. Or like somewhere in that point of the game, because if you don't have that many minions, you don't have to play it yet, but you can.
Yeah.
It's something you can do. You can play a minion the same turn as this and then play this to deal a bunch of damage and then make a bigger minion for next turn.
Yeah.
So really strong card, and you can see how Marrowgar and Grave Strength are very clearly 2 different decks, and Plague Grain goes in both.
Yeah. Yeah, Plagued Grain is just ridiculous. And a reminder, Plague Grain 2 was the 3 rune unholy card as well. So you still do have that unholy only deck building condition for Death Knights. So
death building is pretty entertaining now.
Yeah, death building yeah, that's what I'm gonna call it now whenever I'm building a DK deck. But yeah, so it is like you still have that condition. It is still the unholy way to play, but like you say, even within that 3 unholy rune deck building space, we're still talking about different ways to build that deck. So I do think that that's really interesting. I think they've built a pretty compelling class here. Couple more. So Stitch Giant, we did want to mention. Stitch Giant is the giant of Death Knights. And so it works like all other giants. It costs 1 less for each something you've done. So it is a 2 unholy rune, 10 mana, 8/8. It is an undead, and it costs 1 less for each corpse you've spent this game. So I have a feeling this is going to get pretty zero pretty quickly.
Very zero, very fast. Yeah. We're building around this, and it's going to work.
Yep.
There's a runeless card I want to talk about real quick that we'll jump ahead to.
Okay,
Corpse
sure.
Bride.
Oh god,
Let's look at Corpse Bride.
When I first looked at all your notes and I didn't see Corpse Bride, I was so sad because I love this card just from like a flavor perspective. I just like
costs 5.
5. Why was I thinking 6? I even put all the mana costs in the notes so I could find them easily. But yeah, Corpse Bride, I love this. I love this card. I love this art. I love this like reference. Corpse Bride, wonderful movie too. Anyways, 5 mana 4/4, Battle Cry. Spend up to 8 corpses and summon a Risen Groom with stats equal to the amount spent. So again, up to 8 corpses. You don't get to choose. You have, like, if you have 1, 2, 3, whatever. If you've got 10, you don't get to choose 5. Like if you have 8 or more, you're gonna summon an 8/8. So, and again, this is a spender, which is really good because if you remember, the giant that we just talked about isn't about having the corpses. It's about having spent the corpses. That's the thing that you have to do. So if you're just accumulating them, your giant's not getting any cheaper. You have to actually accumulate, then spend, then your giant gets cheaper. But this is a really good spender.
Yep. I haven't done the math on the curve yet, but it's going to involve Plague Rain, it's going to involve Corpse Bride. But if you spend 2 corpses before you play this card, and then you play this with 8 in the bank, 5 mana for a 4/4 and an 8/8, and then you spent 10 corpses and you play your Stitch Giant for another 8/8, big handlock feelings.
Yes, that's what it reminded me of
handlock
too. Like
feelings.
old school Molten Giant stuff.
Yep. So I think, like, I would guess that on turn 5 that's not going to happen very much, but I would guess that on turn 6, turn 7, if you want to make 20 power and stats, you probably can. And it's not small minions; it's 2 8/8s and a 4/4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a lot of bodies to get rid of. So yeah, I think we're probably going to see this pretty often. Like you said, Corpse Bride. Corpse Bride is one of the runeless cards. So these are just Death Knight like kind of core cards that are there in more of a supporting role, regardless of what kind of runic type you've chosen. So all Death Knights, regardless of their rune composition, can play these cards. We've got a couple more of those. Body Bagger is another one. So is this the one that we talked about earlier? I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about it earlier. This is going to be in every DK deck. It's a 1 mana,
like
1/3
mana worm
undead
of DKs.
It's like, it's just glue, right?
Yeah.
It's 1 mana, 1/3 undead, runeless. Battle Cry, gain a corpse. So it's gives you basically 2 bodies. You get a corpse, and then it is a corpse. And it's also like a dire maul, so 1 mana, 1/3. So it's unexciting, but it's necessary for a lot of the cards to just work. I imagine that most, if not all, DK decks will be playing this on day 1 just to facilitate the strategy. It reminds me of like Firefly.
Man, Firefly was such a good card.
Yes. I had a friend who called him Sparky Boop. And
that's amazing. I need to be friends with that friend.
yes, you do. Her name is Ziggy Sarah. You might know
her. Then we also have Chill Fallen Baron, which is a nope, not that one. Nope, not that. There we go. 3 mana 2/2 undead. And again, runeless minion. All of these ones we're talking about now are available to all DKs. Battle Cry and Death Rattle. Draw a card. Seems good. 3 mana, 2 cards on a 2/2 body. That makes a corpse, which is important.
AI?
Yes, I know AI.
You know AI. This is a guy.
Oh, God. It's been too long. The episode is over.
It's a guy.
Hat, that was terrible. Usually
you're gonna think of this every time you look at this card.
But yeah, now I'm not gonna get that out of my head, and you cannot be forgiven for that.
I don't want your pity. I want your suffering.
So sad.
But this is also gonna be in a lot of DK decks because it's a body, both warm and cold, both are relevant, and then also it gives you a card in the way and gives you a card in the way out. This is a pretty interesting base DK card to give them because it shows the strengths of what the class can do, but also it's kind of pokey, it's kind of slow. Because the turn you play is just 3 mana 2/2 draw card, like it's fine. It's okay. But it's not, I wouldn't go out of my way for it. It's, as a class card, it shows you what DK is going to do. The Death Rattle stuff is really important to them. You're going to play some decent value stuff on curve. It's not broken. It's not crazy, but it's solid.
I was going to say something else, and then I just the joke did not manifest in my brain. It's we're almost at 2 hours. This is the point where I just break. So
Only 2 cards left. We're almost there.
yeah, we're almost there. We're so close. Rune Forging is the next one. It is a 1 mana rare DK spell. Again, no rune cost here. And it is draw a weapon, spend a corpse to reduce its cost by 1. So again, if you have a corpse, it gets spent. Your card will be yellow and your weapon will be 1 cheaper. Otherwise, you're just straight up drawing a weapon. Still good.
It's you either pay a corpse or a mana, fine, and it's a very cost-effective weapon tutor. If you look at Frost has like 3 good weapons that you can choose from. There's Bone Basher, the 1 mana one that when you hit a minion, you hit the face. There's Rime Fang Sword, which when you is a 3 mana one when you attack. Then you reduce the cost of a spell in your hand by 1. And there's Might of Menethil, which is the 4 mana one. It's 4 mana 4/2. That when you play it, you can spend up to 3 corpses and freeze up to 3 enemy minions. Since you have Might of Menethil in play on the screen here, True Chilver Champion.
Wow. How long have you been sitting on that one? I'm surprised that wasn't on your list of Frost cards you wanted to talk about just to make that joke.
No, I needed to surprise you because I knew we were going to come around to Rune Forging. I had to bury it.
Oh, gross.
I tweeted it yesterday. I'm just saying it again because I think I'm funny.
At least someone does.
You sound like my wife.
Okay,
yeah.
The one weapon I want to talk about, because this is a throwback and I'm so excited that this is actually like a collectible card in the game now. It's freaking Frostmourne. Can't talk about Death Knights without talking about Frostmourne. So it's a 7 mana 5/3 legendary weapon, which means you get 1. Obviously, it's Frostmourne. You can't have more than 1. Death Rattle reads, summon every minion killed by this weapon. If you could get this off Lich King and actually make it happen, this card was so fun and so gross. And like, oh man, this is just, it's so good. And now you can just include it in your deck, which makes me very happy. As a reminder, if you do overwrite the weapon, then it will trigger the weapon's Death Rattle. So there are ways to kind of like use this before you've swung 3 times or had 3 turns. Like there are ways to get around this. But yeah, it's such a cool card. It's 15 damage and yeah, a whole bunch of minions back if you want it. You can go face, obviously, because it's a weapon. Frostmourne's so iconic. I'm very excited that it's back and as a collectible card.
Yeah, and I think Rune Forging really makes this card better because playing this on 6 is so much better than playing it on 7.
Yeah.
The text on the card seems to be much more likely to be relevant for blood than anything else, because blood is going to want to hit things and then heal. In Frost, it might be a little too slow. They have a lot of other weapons. You're unlikely to be face tanking things, and I don't know how it's going to go in Unholy. Like I could see it going either way there, but it's an option that's going to be available for every Death Knight, and also it is too iconic to not have Frostmourne in the game, and you can always just play it and hit face 3 times, and that's good enough. That was good enough back then, and it will be good enough now at some point.
Especially if we can get it down on 6.
Yeah, it's a 6 mana 5/3 weapon is good enough already, and the ability to clean up your opponent's board and then have it is pretty cool.
Well, yeah, because again, like you're summoning every minion killed by the weapon, and so that's like new copies. So yeah, this is good. I love Frostmourne. I'm so happy. This just makes me so happy.
Yeah.
You know what else makes me really happy, Hat?
Winding down the show?
Yeah. The fact that we've made it. It was 2 hours, but we made it. You guys did write in with some great emails. We are going to save them for next week. But thank you very much, Mike, aka The Village, and Hachikumo for writing in. We did get your emails. We are going to feature them probably next week. We just ran out of time because there are so many intricacies to talking about Death Knights that we just, I knew that we probably weren't going to have any time. But yeah, thank you guys anyways for writing in. If you did want to send an email to us, you can do so at tacpodcast@gmail.com. You can also tag us on Twitter or send us a message over in the Patreon Discord. Joss, what's the Patreon Discord? I'm so glad you asked, other Joss. We are supported by our epic patrons at patreon.com/tac.
You doing all right over there, boss?
No, I'm so tired. If you go to patreon.com/tac and join the Patreon, then you can get access to our amazing tech Discord where you can send us questions. Wanted to say a big thank you to our Patreon producers, Dustin C. and Jarrett F. Thank you so much for supporting the show. You can follow us on Twitter at TAC Podcast, and you can check the live show Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern right here on twitch.tv/JossPlaysHat. Where can folks find you on the internet if they want to follow your stuff?
Best place is twitter.com/RidiculousHat. That is the hub of my Hearthstone content, at least for the moment. But planning on continuing over there. Still, I have 2 other Hearthstone podcasts. So you can check those out as well. Coin Concede, we make the competitive side of the game more accessible to you over at coinconcede.com. And also Vicious Syndicate, we take a data-driven look at the high-level legend metagame over at vicioussyndicate.com. Joss, what about you?
You can find me on Twitter and Twitch. I'm at Joss Plays. That's JOCE Plays. Please do go check out. See, I can't even talk anymore. My general gaming podcast, The Gamers In, particularly right now because we are raising money for Extra Life. We had our Extra Life game day stream on Saturday. We streamed for 14 hours. It was crazy. It was fun. We played a lot of co-op and competitive stuff, and it was a really, really great time. If you can, please do go and donate. Oh my God, Joss, come on. You've got like 2 more minutes. Let's go. You can go to bit.ly/TGI Extra Life 2022 to donate. We are still short of both our team goal as well as my own personal goal. So you can go there. You can support anybody. But yeah, we are still short of our goals. So we're going to be doing a lot of streams still through November and December. Please do go and support Extra Life. It is a really, 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 really great charity. It is the Children's Miracle Network of Hospitals. We do it every year. It's a great cause. So if you can, please do go and support us. Even if you can't donate, please do go and share the link. Again, that is bit.ly/TGI Extra Life 2022. That's going to do it for us this week. Thank you guys so much for listening. Until next time, job's done.
Job's done.